So it's the biggest weekend of college football of the year so far. Week number 7. We've got some crazy games this week. Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, Oklahoma, Penn State, USC, Ole Miss, LSU, and that's just the start of it. We have some amazing games this week coming off of the biggest upset week of the year last week. And I'm not going to lie to you, last week wasn't our best week, but it's okay. We're going to bounce back. We're still hitting at about over, I think, a 62% hit rate so far against the spread. I think we're all right. We're going to bounce back and we're going to do really well this week on college football. Folks, if you haven't yet, though, make sure that subscribe button down below for some more college football picks here on the channel. We're going to be doing one of these videos every single week, and I've picked every single college football game so far this season, and we're going to continue to do that for the rest of the year. And also, folks, make sure to go check out our UFC Fight Night Royval versus Tetsuro Taira predictions in the comments or in the description down below. That video is linked. Also, later this week, we will have we'll have our ALCS and NLCS predictions, along with currently we'll have our NLDS and ALDS predictions here at the MLB playoffs, and our NFL week number 6 predictions will be on the channel tomorrow as well. Let's get into it. The full slate of games for Thursday, actually Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday starts here. Yes, we have Tuesday games this week, and that was really the whole purpose of me posting these videos on Tuesdays. It's because we're going to have these Tuesday games eventually, and we start things off with Florida International taking on Liberty. Liberty's getting 17 at home. They should cover. Now, I'm a little bit scared with the game being on Tuesday, because Tuesday games, you don't know, right? But Liberty's just the much better team than FIU. Liberty hasn't really done all that well in terms of covering so far this season. They've had close games. I mean, their wins against FBS schools or New Mexico State, who they beat by 6, they did not cover. I don't remember if they covered that game against UTEP, where they only won by 18 points, but then they beat East Carolina by 11, a game that they were trailing for a very long time. They had the last game canceled against App State. Now they get FIU, and they should dominate this football game. FIU has 2 wins all season to Central Michigan and Louisiana Tech, but they lost to Monmouth a couple weeks ago, which is an FCF school. They lost to FAU 3 weeks ago as well, who, FAU's been very up and down so far this season. I like Liberty a lot. Again, Liberty has struggled to cover and to dominate so far this season. This is the game they will do so. Keaton Slaughter and these guys should go out here and absolutely destroy FIU on Tuesday night. It's in Virginia. I like Liberty to win the football game and to cover by 17 as well. Next up, Jacksonville State takes on New Mexico State. So this is the Wednesday night game. I think 20.5 is too many points. I would really like this if it was 21.5. I'm not going to lie. But it's okay. 20.5 will take it with New Mexico State. I understand this team's been horrible this season. They're 1-4. The only win is to Southeast Missouri in a 23-16 win. But look at their losses. Lost to Liberty by 6 points, we just mentioned. Sam Houston lost by 20, but if they lose by 20 to Sam Houston, who's playing incredible ball this season, if they lose by 20 to Jacksonville State, we still get the cover on that game as well. They put up 40 points last week in a loss to New Mexico, or 2 weeks ago against New Mexico, 50-40. Their only one outlier loss is Fresno State, who they lost 48-0 to. But other than that, New Mexico State has been able to cover pretty much every single week. They get Jacksonville State in this game, and this is a team that's going to put up points as well, right? You saw last week their win over Kennesaw, 63-24 2 weeks ago against Kennesaw. Before that, a 44-7 victory over Southern Miss. But this is a team, again, that gives up a lot of points at the same exact time, losing 55-27 to Coastal Carolina, 49-14 to Louisville, 37-34 to Eastern Michigan. Again, Jacksonville State is going to put up points, but at the same time, they're going to give up a lot of points as well. That's why I think New Mexico State is able to keep in this game and cover. Don't get me wrong, Jacksonville State's going to win the football game, but New Mexico State should be able just to stay alive in this one and not get completely blown out the water. So give me New Mexico State to cover. Next up, Coastal Carolina versus James Madison on Thursday night. James Madison, again, with a very disappointing game last week against UL Monroe. They lose it 21-19. They get all this hype around them after back-to-back victories where they put up, again, a combined 137 points or 133 points against UNC, North Carolina, and, of course, against Ball State. And last week, they only put up 19 points and lost to UL Monroe. Don't get me wrong. I think UL Monroe is one of the better teams in the Sun Belt. I have been saying UL Monroe is going to be decent this season. I just didn't think they were going to have that success against JMU. Now you get another Sun Belt game between James Madison and Coastal Carolina, and because it's a conference matchup, and because it's a Thursday night game, I don't think that JMU is going to get 10 points away from Coastal Carolina. I don't think they're going to. I understand the game is in Virginia, but still, I don't think JMU is going to be able to completely blow them out the water. Again, you got to take everything into account for this game. Short week for both teams. I think Coastal's just able to stay alive. I like Ethan Vasco a lot. They've been able to put up points as of late, and Coastal, again, they put up, 45 points last week against Old Dominion. They haven't had a game where they've been completely blown out so far this season, except for Virginia, but a loss to Virginia, at this point in the year, keeps on aging pretty well. So I think Coastal covers the 10 points. I think JMU barely squeaks by, but I don't think they blow out Coastal Carolina in this game. Next up, Middle Tennessee State versus Louisiana Tech. This might be the worst game of the week, so I'll go over it very quickly. I'm taking the home team, Louisiana Tech, to cover the 5 points just because they're at home. Guys, neither of these teams have impressed me at all this season. You look at what Middle Tennessee's done this year. 4 straight losses after barely getting by Tennessee Tech 32-25. They lose to Ole Miss, they lose to Western Kentucky, they lose to Duke, they lose to Memphis. Those aren't bad football teams, but still, they just haven't been competitive in either of those games or in any of those games. And they're taking on a Louisiana Tech team that, if you want to give them something, they play decent defense. Really, that's what Louisiana Tech will, stay in games with. They lost 17-10 last week. They still have struggled to find a starting quarterback as they have played 3 so far this season. And neither Jack Turner, Blake Baker, or Evan Bullock have been all that great. They've got to find a way to somehow score points against Middle Tennessee, because that's where Louisiana Tech struggles. I just don't know how many points Middle Tennessee is going to put up in the first place. So with that being said, it's going to set up for a lot of opportunities for Louisiana Tech to score on offense if their defense is playing well. And I think that's kind of what's going to happen. This is going to be a low-scoring affair, but Louisiana Tech is going to barely be able to get by in terms of the spread. I think they win by a touchdown. Give me Louisiana Tech to cover and to win at home. Our final Thursday game, we've got UTEP taking on Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky is 10 times the team Texas El Paso is. Again, I try to say it every single week that Western Kentucky is the best team in the USA. I think they are, right? Maybe Liberty. I will give you Liberty. Sam Houston's playing really good football as well, but I've been saying how good Western Kentucky is all season long. You saw their close game 2 weeks ago against Boston College. Again, we picked them as dogs at home against Toledo. I've been very impressed with what Western Kentucky has brought this season. Since they have gone, the quarterback switch from Finley to Vet Camp, they've been really good as well. And they're getting this home game on Thursday night. I don't know if you've seen, of course, the uniforms Western Kentucky is going to be wearing this Thursday night. They're pretty damn cool. You got the big red eyes on the helmet and everything. I think it's pretty sick. They're getting UTEP at home, and UTEP hasn't won a game yet this season. And sure, UTEP has stayed in some of these games, but this is a smash play here for Western Kentucky. Again, UTEP, they've lost to Nebraska, Southern Utah, Liberty, Colorado State, Sam Houston. They've lost to some decent teams. But this is a smash opportunity for Western Kentucky at home. They've got the new uniforms and everything. This is a game they should absolutely dominate. I really like the quarterback play again out of Vet Camp. He's been doing really well for this team. And UTEP just doesn't really impress me all that much. I believe they're going with Locklear still. I'm not all that impressed with UTEP at all. It's McConnell now. I forgot. Excuse me. Cade McConnell's the starting quarterback of this team. He's not much better than Locklear. I think Western Kentucky goes out here and absolutely dominates this football game. Next up, we go to Friday. We've got Memphis taking on USF. I'm going with the Tigers to go on the road to Raymond James and cover the spread of 7.5. Other than Memphis' game against Navy, who at this point is undefeated, and I don't know, man. There's a chance we get Navy-Army in the Navy-Army game, and then the week after, we get Navy versus Army in the American Championship game. I'm just saying, with a chance to go to the college football playoffs on the line. I'm just saying, it's a possibility at this point. So I wouldn't say that Memphis loss to Navy's all that bad, but what I do know about USF is they give up a lot of points. That's what happens with them, right? Look at their losses. I understand they played Alabama and Miami. Those are tough teams. They lost 42-16 and 50-15. Respectfully in both those games, but it's their last loss to Tulane at 45-10. And Tulane, again, they've gotten better this season, but Miami, Bama, Tulane, one thing is not like the others, and that's rough. Memphis is going to put up points on this USF team. They just will. They got Seth Hennigan. He's playing really good ball this season. Mario Anderson's running the ball really well for Memphis as well. I don't think USF is able to get stops against this team, and I don't think they're able to keep up offensively as well. I don't really care the game is in Tampa. Which I don't know if the Hurricane, something's going to happen or not for this game. I don't know. Regardless, Memphis should be able to put up points, and regardless, Memphis should be able to just run away from USF in this game. Next up, we go to a Big Ten matchup, Northwestern versus Maryland. I don't think Maryland is 10.5 points better than Northwestern. I don't think they are, right? Both these teams are coming off losses to Indiana. And now, again, I don't want to completely measure these two teams by how they played IU, but you look at what Northwestern did. They stayed in that game to the fourth quarter. Same with Maryland, too, in all fairness. It was just both of those games, again, close through the first 2.5, 3 quarters, and then Indiana pulled away in the fourth quarter against both Northwestern and Maryland. For Northwestern, again, back-to-back losses to Washington and Indiana. For Maryland, again, that lost Indiana last week. My thing with Maryland is regardless who they play, they give up points. Regardless who Maryland plays, they are going to get scored on. It's just a matter of how many points they score in their own right. Billy Edwards, he's not the problem. Ty Felton as well at receiver. Like, those guys are going to show out. Those guys are going to put up points. The thing with Maryland is their defense, and can they, limit what Northwestern's able to do offensively? And again, Northwestern is not that great of a team in all fairness on offense. But I think they are able to move the ball a little bit against Maryland. Again, I don't think they win the football game, but 10.5 to me just feels like too many points, especially again on a Friday night game. They're both coming off losses to Indiana. I think Northwestern stays in it, but I think Maryland wins the football game. But give me the Wildcats to go out there and cover the spread. Next up, we go to our third of four Friday games. We've got UNLV taking on Utah State. I'm taking UNLV to go on the road and cover the 18.5 points. I understand it's a lot. But again, UNLV will put up points regardless against who they play. Again, it's just their defense at points. They had Syracuse. They absolutely had Syracuse in that game. They had them dead to rights. And they just couldn't finish it at home. Again, that was a huge win for UNLV. Their first time being ranked in I don't know how many years. And they couldn't finish the job against Syracuse. Again, it's a non-conference game. And this is what we're seeing with a lot of these Mountain West schools, right? They're losing. All of them are losing non-conference games. San Jose State, Boise State, UNLV, the top three in the Mountain West are all losing non-conference games. But ultimately, again, for all three of those schools, they just have to win their conference. And they're all going to play each other this seaon, right? Don't forget about Fresno as well, who's going to, mess up what some of these teams have got going as well. I know UNLV beat them. But with UNLV and Utah State, I don't care the game's in Utah. Utah has not beaten FBS schools so far this season. They got 62 put on their head by Boise State. UNLV's not going to do exactly that. Obviously, Ashton Genty's not on that team, UNLV, but UNLV does have some weapons on offense, and I mean a lot of weapons, right? Malik Williams in 2 games has surpassed how many passing yards Matthew Sluka put up for this football team, right? Malik Williams is already their leading rusher. He's already surpassed what Sluka did in the running the football as well. And again, they've progressively gotten Ricky White more involved in the offense as we've got it going, right? Ricky White blocked a punt in that game against Syracuse, but on top of that, again, Ricky White's getting the football a lot more. And again, if Malik Williams continues to manage this offense well, which I think he has been doing, they will run away from Utah State. Again, you know if he's going to win the football game. My one concern, they're on the road. They're in Logan for this game, but I do think UNLV is able to put up enough points to get away from Utah State. Let's go into Saturday. Clemson takes on Wake Forest. I'm taking Clemson to cover 20 points. Wake Forest is just bad. I don't care they beat NC State. NC State's horrible too, right? NC State's really bad. I did pick NC State to beat Wake Forest last week, but again, that's a tough game. Both these teams have not been playing great football. Wake Forest got away from them in that game. They beat them. Okay, right. Like Hank Bachmer. Again, I've always said Bachmer's not the problem for this team, but it's all right. Clemson will run away from Wake Forest. Clemson's the way better football team. My thing is, again, can they get past those 20 points? I think so. Right, Florida State played them somewhat competitively. Clemson won the road. They only beat them by 16 points, which, okay, we're talking about, they only beat them by 16, but still again to cover the spread. That's not enough in that game, right? But what Clemson has done this season, they've put up points. The Georgia game, I'm not going to say it's a fluke, but they really just didn't look prepared to play that football game, and it was just, it was tough sledding for Clemson going into that one. We'll see what we get out of Clemson and Wake Forest. I think Clemson will run away from them in this football game. I think their defense should be able to stop whatever the hell Wake Forest has got going on in offense, right? They should be able to limit the hundreds of RPOs Wake Forest is going to throw at them. Clemson is just all around the better football team. Them and Miami are way better than the rest of the pack, obviously, in the ACC. I want to shout out Pittsburgh, though. I think Pittsburgh has got a legitimate chance to win the conference as well. I just don't think they're getting looked at like all these other teams. Eli Holstein's putting together a crazy season for Pitt as well. But I think Clemson does get away from Wake Forest and put up, more than 20, obviously, to get away from them. I think Clemson wins. I think they cover as well. Next up, Missouri versus UMass. I was kind of split on this one. I was going to pick UMass to cover 20.5, but then I realized again, it's still UMass and Missouri, after getting embarrassed last week, I don't think that they get completely embarrassed again, and I think they absolutely lay it on Massachusetts this week. Again, Missouri played one of the worst football games you could have played. Coming in ranked number 9, you go on the road to College Station, and you lose 41-10 to Texas A&M. Absolutely horrendous. It was a horrific performance by the Missouri Tigers. It is what it is, right? I still don't want to understate what Missouri has done, though, prior to that game. They have to go on the road to UMass in this one. Now, again, there is no question in my mind, is Missouri beating UMass? It's going to happen, obviously. I don't think it's a question in anybody's mind who's winning this football game. It's just a matter of, can Missouri put up more than 27.5 to get away from UMass and cover the spread? I think they will. It's just, again, UMass last week, they lost by 14 in Northern Illinois, right? Eastern Michigan beat them by 14. Buffalo beat them by 31 points, right? Toledo beat them by 15, right? These teams have been able to put up numbers and win against UMass by double digits. How Buffalo went on the road to UMass and covered and beat them by 31 points. I believe they were actually road dogs, and they won that football game by 31 points. This isn't, for me, honestly, this isn't really, I'm just relying on Missouri to bounce back and look really good. No, I don't think UMass is that great. This is a losing team. Sure, they only lost by 3 points to Miami of Ohio, but Missouri's from the SEC, and I don't care how bad they looked last week. They're gonna put up points against UMass. Give me Missouri to cover the 27.5. We go on to our next one, Wisconsin versus Rutgers in the Big Ten. I'm going with Rutgers to cover the 2.5 points. I think these teams are very, very evenly matched. I'll be honest with you, right? Rutgers is coming off of that 14-7 loss to Nebraska last week. They had that home game where they beat Washington. Washington, right's coming off of a win against Michigan now. So again, the Big Ten's crazy this season, but Rutgers to me is just the better football team. I understand, again, they lost in Nebraska. That's a tough day. That's a tough game to go out there and play. It just is. But now you get Wisconsin, a team that, is coming off a huge win against Purdue, but Purdue is god-awful and probably the worst team in the Big Ten. It's either Purdue or UCLA, who's the worst team in this conference. But despite that, I still don't think Wisconsin's very good. I said this at the beginning of the season. I don't think Wisconsin's a very good football team. I don't think they are, right? Braden Locke looked good last week against Purdue, sure, but it's Purdue. Rutgers, again, Kalamankis at quarterback, he's not going to do anything that's going to take over this football game, obviously, right? That, Kalamankis isn't that type of player. It's going to be Monaghan, the running back, who's going to really, excel for this football team. But I don't think Rutgers is able to run the ball up and down the field against Wisconsin. I think they're the better football team. I like their defense. Wisconsin's not going to put up 52 points against Rutgers, right? I mean, Rutgers' defense should be able to lock them down of sorts. I think Rutgers wins the football game. Give me the Scarlet Knights to win, and I think they cover the 2.5 as well. We go on to our next one here. Georgia Tech takes on North Carolina. I'm taking Georgia Tech to go on the road and beat UNC. Right? UNC's coming off that loss to Pitt last week. Again, we thought that was going to happen. We thought Pitt was going to cover, and that's exactly what has happened, right? Again, Pittsburgh has their first 5-0 start since the 90s, right? That's a big deal. I've been high on Pittsburgh all season. We have picked Pittsburgh pretty much every single week so far this year, and I'm going to continue to pick Pittsburgh. I'm looking at you, Cal, later on in the video. But Georgia Tech only getting 6 points on the road, I think is a little, I don't think it's a bad line, but I just think, again, they're way better than North Carolina. North Carolina's defense will not be able to contain whatever the hell Georgia Tech's going to throw at them, obviously, right, with Haynes King, with their, run game. They got Jamal Haynes and such, right? Haynes King's going to pull it himself as well. Malik Rutherford's been playing really well as well. Haynes King has been able to get him the football as well. And UNC, again, I'm not impressed with this team, obviously, right? They're playing on a backup quarterback, so they're always at a disadvantage, the entire year. Max Johnson's not playing, but Jacoby Criswell hasn't been all that bad, don't get me wrong. Jacoby Criswell, right? Omarion Hampton is everything in this offense. They are going to feed Omarion Hampton the ball 24/7. However, Georgia Tech, if they're able to stop that run game, this is what Pitt did. They were able to stop Omarion Hampton, force Jacoby Criswell to throw the football. Criswell's not bad, but he's going to make errors at the same time. So I think Georgia Tech's a better football team. They just are. Their offense is going to score. I don't think UNC is going to be able to score as much as Georgia Tech going to be able to. So give me the Yellow Jackets to go out there, win the football game. I think they'll cover the 6 points as well. Next up, Ball State takes on Kent State. Give me Ball State. I don't really care how bad Ball State has looked. But Ball State actually impressed me last week in their loss to Western Michigan, right? At home, they stayed in the game, lost 45-42, but that was impressive. And that was really impressive. And a game that Ball State needed to have, right? Considering what they've done so far this season, right? A 62-point loss against Miami, losing 63-7 against James Madison, right? The close loss on the road at Central Michigan. A game where, I know they didn't beat Western Michigan, but that's a game they needed to have. That's the confidence they need to go into Kent and beat Kent State, a team that hasn't covered all year long. They haven't won all year long. Despite that, they still haven't covered all year long. It's just, Kent's just not a good team. Kent's just not a good team. They're on their backup quarterback, Tom Ulatowski, who I don't think's all that bad, don't get me wrong. Contrary to prior belief, at least, everyone on social media, and at least in the broadcast, thought that Ulatowski was the third-string quarterback. No, he's the second. He just went into that game. I just wanted J.D. Sherrod, I believe, to play that game against Penn State. Ulatowski is going to be starting for Kent State. Obviously, again, you can talk about their bright spots, right? We're looking at, of course, Christian McCray, who just isn't getting the ball enough. But it is what it is. Ball State's a better football team. Kent State can't beat anybody. And despite that, 6.5 is crazy. Because, again, Ball State put up 42 points last week against Western Michigan. Do you think in any world Kent State can put up 25 plus, 28 plus? It's kind of where I stand for that football game. Give me the Cardinals to go out there and cover the football game. Next up, Toledo versus Buffalo. I think Buffalo covers 9.5. Again, I'm not going to shy away from picking Buffalo just because of one bad loss. Guys, Buffalo's still got a chance to win the MAC. They're still 1-0 in the MAC. Sure, they looked absolutely horrible against UConn. I don't know what happened to them. 47-3. I don't know what happened. I really don't know what happened. It was really bad. Despite that, Buffalo's played great football this season. UMass 34-3. beating Northern Illinois on the road 23-20. This is still a good football team. I like Buffalo. Again, they got a bye week last week after their embarrassment at the hands of Connecticut. They should be fine. I think Toledo, again, not a bad team, but are they 9.5 points better than Buffalo? No, they're not. They're not. And the game's in New York as well. I think Buffalo is able to cover this football game. I think Toledo probably wins, if I'm being honest with you. But Buffalo is too good to lose by that many points. One bad week against Connecticut doesn't really signify how good this team is. I don't care. They were on the road 2 weeks ago and they didn't look great. That's fine. They're going to bounce back this week and we'll be okay with the Bulls this week. Next up, Army versus UAB. Again, I'm trying to tell you, Army-Navy is going to be a huge game this season. Both those teams are probably, I think, the two best teams in the American. I get Tulane is not bad as well, but North Texas, give a shout out to them as well. But Army and Navy are killing it this year. Army hasn't had a close game all year. I believe Army has covered every single game this season. And now they're taking on maybe one of the worst teams they can play right now in UAB. UAB's god-awful. They just are. They're really bad. They got 70 put on their head last week against Tulane. Tulane, I believe, had 2 kick return touchdowns. I mean, it's ridiculous. UAB was absolutely horrible last week. If you want to see how UAB plays an option or a run-heavy team like Army, 41-18 loss to Navy. But the thing is, again, Navy and Army, they're evolving this season. They're actually throwing the football. And I want to give a huge shout out to Bryson Daly, who's playing really well at quarterback for this Army team. 380 passing yards, 600 rushing yards. Shout out to Noah Short as well, who's killing it. He'll rip off huge runs at points as well. I really like Army. They're at home. This game's at West Point. They will dominate UAB in this football game. Next up, Miami of Ohio versus Eastern Michigan. Eastern Michigan is 3-point underdogs at home. Absolutely hammer this line. Eastern Michigan is not losing to Miami of Ohio. They are not. I truly don't think so. Eastern Michigan's 4-1 in the season. Their only loss is to Washington. And I get it. They haven't played the best teams. But a win over UMass, a win over Jacksonville State, an FCS win over St. Francis, PA, and a 52-33 win over Kent State. I get it. Eastern Michigan's defense will give up points. But Miami of Ohio is 1-4 this season. They have been credited and been given so much respect on the lines in Vegas. It's because they just keep games close. That's what they've done this season. 13-6 loss to Northwestern, 27-16 loss against Cincinnati. They covered against Notre Dame even though they lost by 25 points, and a 10-point loss to Toledo. They played good enough just to lose. And again, when you play just good enough just to lose, you're going to lose close games. Eastern Michigan is the better football team. They have the better squad as well, and Eastern Michigan is going to win this game at home. Again, I think it's crazy. Eastern Michigan is at home and underdogs. They shouldn't be. Give me the Eagles to win this football game against the Miami of Ohio Redhawks. I think they win it. Again, I like them at home. 3 points. I think it's crazy. They should be favorites. Take this line while you still can. Give me the Eagles to win the game in that maction right there. Notre Dame versus Stanford. I want to pick Stanford, but I can't do it. Notre Dame is actually looking better now. Riley Leonard has kind of figured it out. Kind of. They look good in the Louisville win. I'll give them that. Notre Dame, I'm not still that impressed. I'm going to be completely honest with you. And I don't know if I'm ever going to be impressed with Notre Dame. I'll be impressed with Notre Dame when they go out and if they can beat Navy, Virginia, Army, and USC, I'll be impressed with this football team. Throw in Georgia Tech too. If Notre Dame can finish this year with only that one loss to Northern Illinois, I will say I'm wrong about Notre Dame and they're not a bad football team. I don't think they're bad, but then I'll say, okay, they deserve to be in the playoffs. Right now, I don't think this is a playoff team. I just don't think it is. They stall out on offense too much, and they're just not that great. They're going to beat Stanford, obviously. They're going to blow Stanford up the water. Stanford made the quarterback switch last week from Ashton Daniels to Justin Lampson. I think they should go back to Ashton Daniels, personally. I don't think Lampson looked very good. He did not help us cover our spread against VTech. It's fine. But Stanford's going to get boat raced here. They just are. They're going on the road to South Bend. It's somewhat of a rivalry game. I don't think really people care much about the Stanford-Notre Dame rivalry, at least right now, because Stanford sucks. But Notre Dame's the better football team. I am a little scared about Notre Dame beating anybody by 24 points, I'll be honest with you. But right now, if it's going to be anybody, it's going to be Stanford. Okay? Stanford looked horrible last week against VTech. They lost 31-7 at home against Virginia Tech, who sure is improving, but a team that I thought Stanford was going to be able to at least hang around with. I'm just going to ride momentum here. Notre Dame's playing well. They're coming off a ranked victory. And Stanford looked horrible last week. We're going with Notre Dame. I think this game changes a lot, though, if Ashton Daniels starts. I think Daniels is better than Lamson. I hope they start him. And if they do, then maybe consider taking Stanford. I'm just saying. Because again, 24 is a lot for Notre Dame. It just is. I don't know. We'll see. Next up, we have got a matchup here between Purdue and Illinois. Again, Purdue's the worst team in the Big Ten. No one's telling me otherwise. Purdue's just so bad. They're so awful. They're so bad this year, right? I lost last week 52-6 to Wisconsin. Before that, a 28-10 loss to Nebraska. Oregon State beat them up. Notre Dame beat them up. Purdue's horrible. Purdue's really bad. They had their opportunity again. They came off 49-0 victory over Indiana State, and then I was like, all right, they get Notre Dame, who's coming off a loss to Northern Illinois. Maybe Purdue shows up. Nope, they did not show up. They looked horrible. They did not show up. They get Illinois this week, right? Illinois, they lost to Penn State 2 weeks ago. That's fine. They're still ranked. I think their offense is able to put up points against Purdue. Again, look at what Purdue just did against Wisconsin and think about what Illinois can do to this football team. Now, this game is in Urbana-Champaign. Illinois will absolutely blow this team out the water. And for Purdue, again, they need to get used to this. Because this is going to continue to happen every single week for Purdue this season because they're just not good. Illinois is going to dominate this football game. They'll win it at home. They're just way better than Purdue. Again, Purdue's just awful. Louisville and Virginia. Guys, I'm taking Virginia to cover the 7.5 at home, right? We were right last week with SMU and Louisville. Just saying. SMU road dogs against Louisville. I thought they were going to keep it competitive. I thought they were going to have a good chance to win the football game, and they did. Okay, Louisville's coming off back-to-back losses to Notre Dame and SMU. Virginia at home, again, a team that I was once very down on. I'm not going to lie to you. All of a sudden is a very competitive team in the ACC. They're 4-1. Their only losses to a Big Ten school in Maryland. Back-to-back wins over Coastal Carolina. And then BC, who I didn't think they were going to beat. They played tremendous defensive football in that football game. Virginia's defense is improving. Their offense, leaves a little bit to be desired, but they were really able to force, mistakes out of Thomas Castellanos. Something that, a lot of teams haven't been able to do to Castellanos this season. Virginia makes him look very normal in the pocket and really didn't let Castellanos extend plays. I like what Virginia's able to do. I don't know if they win this football game, I'm being completely honest with you. I think it's kind of like Louisville's game last week against SMU. The line's way too wide to the point where, again, I think the underdogs do cover, that being Virginia this week. I just don't know if they can straight up win the football game. I'm taking Virginia to cover. Winning, we'll see. But Virginia's playing well. I really like what they did against BC last week, and I think they do cover this game against Louisville. All right, on to our next slate here. Again, we got another one of these full slates, and here we go. We're going to start things off with Cincinnati and with Central Florida. I think Cincinnati wins this football game. I don't understand this line, really. UCF coming off two very unimpressive games against Colorado and against Florida. They beat TCU a couple weeks ago, but they beat them by 1 point. You look at what Cincinnati's able to do. This team is going to, score. They're going to score a lot of points. That's just what they do. Brennan Sorbsy, obviously the Indiana transfer, has been very good this season for the Bearcats. He has 1 interception, 12 touchdowns, and 1,500 yards. He's been dominating this season. Corey Kiner's been decent at the running back position as well. You look at what Xavier Henderson's able to do, a receiver also for the Cincinnati team. I like the Bearcats. They're able to score points. They lost last week or 2 weeks ago to Texas Tech 45-42. It's okay. Texas Tech just went on the road and beat Arizona, and I don't think Arizona's that bad. I just think Texas Tech's a pretty good football team, right? That's going to happen to you for Cincinnati. They're going on the road to UCF here. UCF, again, since that Colorado loss hasn't looked very good. They really laid an egg last week at Florida in a game that I thought they could have been competitive in, right? I don't think KJ Jefferson's bad by any stretch of the imagination. I just think Cincinnati's the better football team. I like what their offense is able to do, and what I think for this game, it's going to be a shootout. I don't think UCF's able to keep up, okay? I think it's very similar to what Colorado did to UCF. Colorado put up a lot of points, but against Central Florida was just not able to stay in the football game. I think Cincinnati does somewhat of the same thing. Give me the Bearcats to go on the road and win this football game, and of course cover the spread as well. I don't see why they're underdogs in this game. I don't see it. Next up, San Diego State versus Wyoming. Oh my goodness, this is a horrible football game. I'm actually going with the Cowboys of Wyoming to cover this one, just because the game is in Laramie. That's why I'm taking Wyoming to win this football game here. They're both really bad. They just are. They're both horrible. San Diego State's coming off a 3-point victory against Hawaii, but again, you are supposed to smash Hawaii when they come stateside to play you, and they beat them by 3 points. I think they were only getting 2.5, and being honest with you, I think they covered. But I think Wyoming's slightly better right now. You see what Wyoming did a couple weeks ago to Air Force. Sure, Wyoming's not impressive at all. I'm not going to lie to you. This team doesn't impress me, but San Diego State doesn't impress me at all either. These are potentially the two worst teams in the Mountain West. I know Air Force. With San Diego State's a weird team because you look at what they do on offense, right? Like, on paper, they're not horrible. Danny O'Neal doesn't have huge yardage, but doesn't turn over the football. Marquez Cooper is able to run it somewhat effectively. They just stall out and they can't punch the ball in ever, right? I think Wyoming at home should be fine here. I think. Give me the Cowboys to go out and win the football game at home. I like Wyoming over San Diego State. I don't know. It's just, it's a really bad Mountain West game. I'm not going to lie to you. It's a really bad Mountain West game. Next up, we've got ODU versus Georgia State. Give me Georgia State. Give me Georgia State to win the football game. ODU has just been good enough just to lose this season. That's how the Old Dominion Monarchs have been to me. Again, they will stay competitive in games, but they are good enough just to lose. South Carolina, good enough just to lose. East Carolina, good enough just to lose. They will cover spreads again because they are good enough to keep games competitive. But now they get a game where they got, a 1.5 point spread. I don't think they cover this one against Georgia State. I think Georgia State is the better team. I know they lost last week against Georgia Southern, but don't forget 2 weeks ago, this team did beat Vandy, and Vanderbilt is coming off an Alabama victory. Did anyone see that coming? No. If you saw that coming, you are lying to yourself that you saw Vanderbilt beating Alabama, who is coming off a win against Georgia. Unbelievable stuff. Georgia State's the better football team. They're going to cover the 1.5, 2.5. Again, ODU is good enough just to lose. But in that case, again, that regard, they've been good enough to cover against these teams. But now you get, again, a 1.5 point spread. They're not covering against Georgia State. Give me Georgia State to win the game and give me them to cover as well. Next up, we go back to the MAC. We've got Western Michigan taking on Akron. Western Michigan's going to score points. Akron's not going to be able to score points against Western Michigan. Okay? Again, stylistically, again, we picked Akron to cover last week against Bowling Green. We were correct in that statement, right? Western Michigan, they didn't cover against Ball State, but they put up 45 points in a victory. Okay. Stylistically, these two games for Akron are so much different. Bowling Green's not going to, again, get into shootouts. They're not going to play aggressively on offense. They're not going to play up tempo, and they're not going to try to blow you out the water. That's what Western Michigan does regardless of their opponent. They play high tempo. They throw the ball downfield. They are going to, again, try to maximize every single offensive possession and every single second they have on the field in terms of offense. Bowling Green's not really that team. That's why I picked Akron to cover. Different games again, right? Again, Akron played a team in Bowling Green who is not going to put up crazy points against you. And that's why I thought, again, as long as Akron's able to have a couple decent drives in that football game, okay, they should cover. They're going to have a lot of decent drives against Western Michigan in this football game because that's just how WMU plays. They're going to, again, play high-tempo offense. They're going to throw the ball downfield on you. And that's the difference in this game. Akron in their last game just needed to play decent defense, and they needed to, again, just score a little bit. Now, in this game against Western Michigan, they just have to play decent defense, but at the same time, now their offense has to be better. And I understand, again, Western Michigan doesn't have the defense Bowling Green has, but I think Western Michigan's able to put up points in this football game, and this game is in Kalamazoo as well. I think Western Michigan, again, is able to get away from Akron, and I think they are able to get away from the spread and win this game by more than 8.5 points. Next up, we got Northern Illinois taking on Bowling Green. Tough game. I like Bowling Green. Just Northern Illinois, God, after beating Notre Dame, they've gotten all this national attention around him, and look, they haven't done anything since the Notre Dame game. They haven't won since the Notre Dame game. Actually, no, they beat UMass last week, but still, right, losing to Buffalo 23-20, losing to NC State 24-17. Again, we kind of thought they were going to lose to NC State, but the Buffalo loss isn't great. I know Buffalo, again, I'm very high on, but I don't know, Northern Illinois just hasn't been great this season. Bowling Green, they play good defense. They've been in close games every single week this year. They're, one of these teams, again, like I mentioned earlier, right? They play Penn State close, they lose. They play Texas A&M close, they lose. They lose to Old Dominion in a close game, right? Usually that, kind of spells, they lose close games, and they're able to stay in close games against good teams. But when they play, other conference games, then they'll tend to just lose these close games as well. I just think they're better than Northern Illinois. Northern Illinois doesn't score the ball that well. Bowling Green, to me, just appears the better football team. Connor Bazelak has been just for them, but still he's done what they've needed him to do. They've got a really good tight end, Harold Fannin Jr. I like Bowling Green to go out and win the football game. 3 points at home. Again, I think these teams are somewhat even, but I do think Bowling Green slightly better. On top of that, they get this game at home. Bowling Green, again, they have not played the best football this season, but they are coming off a win over Akron on the road. Again, it's not a great win, but it's still a win. I think they're able to beat Northern Illinois, a team that, again, has not seen the success they have seen since that Notre Dame game. Ethan Hampton has just been okay for them. Ontario Brown does everything for the offense, but still, I think Bowling Green's a better football team, and I think they win it at home. Next up, staying in the MAC, we've got Ohio and Central Michigan. Absolutely hammer Ohio -3. Ohio is not losing to Central Michigan, and they're not going to be in a close game with Central Michigan. I don't care this game's on the road. Ohio is 10 times better than Central Michigan. Central Michigan has had close games back-to-back weeks where they got by Ball State and they got by San Diego State. So again, you look at their record, they're 3-2, they're 1-0 in the MAC. That's great, but they're not really that good. Personally, I don't think Central Michigan's that great. I just think they played bad teams. Ohio is the way better football team, right? They lost to Syracuse week 1 by 16 points. They went out, they beat South Alabama, which is not a bad team. They beat Morgan State, they lost to Kentucky. All right, it's going to happen. And they blew out Akron, they beat them by 20 points. Ohio is just the better football team. They were one of the better teams in the Mid-American Conference. Parker Navarro's been okay, but it's really Anthony Tyus who is their standout guy, I would say. Owen Coleman has basically 70% of the passing yards Parker Navarro has thrown for this season. Ohio's just the better team. Central Michigan would not be getting this respect if they were on the road or if this game was at a neutral site. It's just because, it's at Michigan. We're going to make them only 3-point dogs. No, Ohio will absolutely destroy this team. I feel like some of these lines of the MAC games are kind of ridiculous. I don't know. I think Ohio's way better. Next up, Georgia taking on Mississippi State. I think 32 is just too much, personally. I think it's too many points. I'm taking Mississippi State to cover that. Right, the last time we saw a game that I said that was too many points against Mississippi State was Texas. It was their last game, and they did lose it by 32 points, and that'll be a push in this game. I don't care how bad Mississippi State has played this season. They're still an SEC school, and I feel like 32 is just too much. Blake Shapen actually hasn't been bad this year. They just can't run the football to save their lives, right? And Shapen isn't horrible, and their defense, is just going to get blown up. That's kind of what happens in their games. I don't know if Georgia's able to pull away from them by that many points. Because my thing is, again, I just don't know if Georgia's able to score that many points. 32, okay, we can expect Mississippi State to score. I think we can expect them to score 14 points. Okay, that's the very least. We expect them to score 14 points. So then Georgia would need to put up 47 to cover. They haven't put up 47 against anybody other than Tennessee Tech this year. I don't think they will do that in this game. I don't think Georgia, again, I don't think they have that explosive of an offense to get away from Mississippi State by that many points. Don't get me wrong, they're winning the football game. And that is not a hot take at all. We all know Georgia is going to beat Mississippi State. The game is in Athens as well, right? There's no doubt in my mind Georgia wins the football game. I just don't think they're 32 points better than Mississippi State. Again, Mississippi State is still a team in the SEC. Their offense really isn't that horrible. They're able to put up points at times. I think they're able to, again, lose by only 24, 28-ish points. Okay? Give me Mississippi State to cover. Obviously, again, we're going Georgia to win the football game. Next up, absolutely hammer this. San Jose State, there's no way, no how, San Jose State is not beating Colorado State. And I get it. I've been a huge San Jose State guy this season. I've been pumping them up every single week, but for good reason. This team that's 2-0 now in the Mountain West, their only loss is Wazoo on the road in a 54-52 double overtime game. This team's going to score. Nick Nash is one of the better receivers in all of college football. Shout out to him again, throwing for his second touchdown pass of the year last week to win the game against the Nevada Wolfpack. And I get it, they didn't cover against Nevada. It's fine. Now you get them in a pick'em spot. So again, they don't cover last week. It is what it is. But now you get to buy low on San Jose State here because they're absolutely going to roll over Colorado State. And Colorado State, again, this is the most respect you're going to ever see this season from Colorado State because they kept competitive with Oregon State. I don't care. San Jose State's 10 times the team Colorado State is. We only need SJSU to win the game. Colorado State's offense cannot keep up with whatever the hell San Jose State's going to offer. Emmett Brown has been playing a sneaky good year this season. The Wazoo transfer's been good. 15 touchdowns, 4 picks, 1,500 passing yards. Nick Nash, two passing touchdowns. His 2 passing attempts this season are touchdowns, and he's got 712 rushing yards. Again, the next coming of Calvin Johnson is Nick Nash. He's that good. Just saying. Is he going to be Calvin Johnson? Probably no. But still, I like Nick Nash a lot. He's a dominant receiver, especially in the Mountain West. San Jose State's just the better team. They just are. Colorado State turns the ball over too much for my likings, personally. I am not impressed with Colorado State. Sure, they played Oregon State well. That's okay. That's one game. It's one game. They are due to fall back down to earth. I've seen, again, Colorado State against Colorado, Texas, sure. Like, again, they didn't impress me that much in their win over UTEP, right? Like, other than the fact that, yeah, they can run the football. Avery Moreau has played 3 really good back-to-back games. Back-to-back games. But San Jose State plays the run really well. I've seen them shut down really good run teams like Air Force and Sacramento State. I'm more than fine picking San Jose State here. Hell, you want to look at an alt line? Go San Jose State alt line -6.5. You probably get some really good plus money on that. I'm just saying. I think San Jose State dominates this football game. I think they're 10 times the team Colorado State is. Next up, Air Force. Sorry, actually, we skipped one. Southern Miss versus UL Monroe. All right, well, I'm going to buy in. I'm going to buy in a little bit on UL Monroe here. We're going to buy in on the Warhawks, okay? I'm buying my stock now. I've always thought they're not bad. I just thought, okay, well, you know, James Madison should be able to run over them. No, okay? Shout out to UL Monroe. Their only loss this year is Texas, who is the #1 team in the country. It's their only loss all year long. They are a very run-heavy team. That's what they do. You know, they're going to win low-scoring games because they feed off their defense. That's how UL Monroe plays. They are 100% based off their defense. And Southern Miss's offense has been very lackluster this season. They haven't really... The most points they put up in a game is 35 over an FCS school, and that's 24 and a 25-point loss to USF. Southern Miss doesn't really score, so that really just for us, I don't think Southern Miss puts up more than 10 points in this game. I'll be honest with you, I don't think they do, right? Like, UL Monroe stopped Troy to 9, JMU to 19. Again, James Madison, the team that put up 70 points against North Carolina, only put up 19 points against UL Monroe. That's how good a defense the Warhawks play. With that being said, UL Monroe should be able to contain whatever the hell is going to happen, whatever they're going to deal with on the other side of the ball in this game against Southern Miss. Ever since UL Monroe made the quarterback change from General Booty to Aiden Armetta, they've been better, I think. Even though I don't think Armetta is like that much better than Booty, but it's okay. Their defense will be able to shut down Southern Miss. Southern Miss is not going to score more than 10 points. So max, we're giving Southern Miss 10 points in this game. That means UL Monroe only has to put up 17 to cover. Or to push. 18 to cover. Yeah, we're fine. UL Monroe's going to get that. I don't think Southern Miss's offense is good, and I really like UL Monroe's defense. Let's move on to our next one. Go back to the Mountain West here. Air Force versus the New Mexico Lobos. New Mexico is so much better than Air Force. Air Force has been pitiful this year. They can't score the ball, and they don't really get run over on defense, but they can't score, right? Listen to their point totals this year. Merrimack at FCS school, they put up 21 points. SJSU 7, but hey, shout out the Spartans. 3 points against Baylor, 19 against Wyoming, and 7 against Navy. Air Force just doesn't really score. They can't score. New Mexico's way better. And this is my thing. New Mexico, okay. Air Force will probably have their biggest scoring game of the year this game. They probably will, just because, again, New Mexico doesn't play defense. They really don't. But at the same time, New Mexico is one of the most explosive offenses in college football. When they don't turn the ball over. They turn the ball over a lot, I'm not going to lie. Devin Dampier turns the ball over a lot, but he's fun to watch. I really like watching Devin Dampier. I mean, he's an elusive guy. He can, scramble, but he can also create plays for himself. He's got as many rushing touchdowns as he does passing touchdowns this season. He's got a decent arm as well. Like, Luke Weissong's not a horrible receiver either for this football team, but Devin Dampier, again, is everything in this offense. Devin Dampier does everything, and I don't think Air Force is able to keep up, right? My thing is, yeah, Air Force will probably score more points than they usually do. But the thing is, New Mexico, I think will score pretty much every single time out against Air Force. Like, that's just how, again, no pun intended, they air it out. And they're going to give Air Force a lot of trouble, I think, right? I like Dampier a lot. Again, I saw them go into Tucson, Arizona. And even in a loss, right, I still saw them put up 39 points against Arizona, a team that limited Utah to, 15 points. Like, I'm good. I really like New Mexico a lot. Sure, they're 1-4, but their offense is going to put up points. And I don't know how they're going to finish the year in Mountain West play, but their offense will always score, and that's why I'm always going to continue to pick New Mexico. So give me the Lobos to cover against Air Force. They're getting what? They're getting 6.5. Yeah, they're going to win this game by 2 touchdowns. Going back to the Mountain West again, I mean, technically Wazoo's not a Mountain West school, but you got Wazoo on the road at Fresno State. I can't pick Fresno State after their last game. I just can't. Just can't do it. Because my thing is, again, Fresno will likely be better offensively against Washington State. They will, right? You look at what Washington State did against Boise, right? They didn't lay an egg, but, they let Ashton Genty run all over them. I mean, who doesn't do that, right? But they did give up 45 points in that football game, right? And I like John Maytier. John Maytier is playing really well, playing really good football for Wazoo. We talking about how Devin Dampier does everything for New Mexico. Well, no, John Maytier does everything for Wazoo. You look at what Fresno State's been able to do. Again, they've been a very good team this season, but they ran into UNLV and they could not get anything going. Mikey Keene just turned into just horrible, right? It all started at the beginning of the game when they subbed in Jaden Mandel to throw a deep shot on 3rd and short, and he threw a pick, and it just all went downhill for Fresno State after. I was so disappointed in the Bulldogs in that game, and my disappointment, leads me to picking Washington State in this football game. Fresno State, they make mistakes on offense, unfortunately, and I just think they're going to make too many mistakes in this game because I think Washington State will be able to score a lot. I think they will. Again, this is going to be a high-scoring affair, but only 3.5 for Washington State. They should be able to get away by a touchdown in this one. Again, I expect a bunch of scoring. I just do. But I like Mateer and this Washington State offense more than what I like Fresno State's offense in. I think, again, these are two offenses that are going to put up points. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I like Washington State's offense more than I do Fresno State's offense. So give me the Cougars to go on the road and give me them to cover against the Fresno State Bulldogs. Going to our next one here, we've got Arkansas State taking on Texas State. Now, I have picked against Arkansas State a lot. I'm not afraid to say that. I don't want to say a hater of Arkansas State. I feel like they've just been a little bit overhyped at times. Now I think Texas State's getting a little too much respect on the lines here. 14.5 is a lot of points. I've been against picking Arkansas State when they have been favorites. It's okay. I still think they're able to stay competitive against Texas State. They're not going to win this football game. Texas State's the better football team. Don't get me wrong, right? Like, Texas State, they've been in a lot of close games this season. They've lost 2 games, but they've only lost 2 games by 4 points combined, right? Like, they're not bad. Texas State's going to put up a lot of points. You saw what they did against Troy, 38-17 victory. I like Jordan McLeod. McLeod's been sneaky, one of the better quarterbacks in the group of 5 this season. He's been really good. My thing is, again, they can still win the game by 2 touchdowns and not cover. Yeah, give me Arkansas State. I don't think Arkansas State is 2 touchdowns worse than Texas State. And even if they are, again, 2 touchdowns would be a cover for the Red Wolves in this football game. I like Arkansas State to go out here and cover, right? Jalen Raynor is pretty good, I think, for what they ask him to do. For what they ask him to do, he's not bad. The interception numbers are a little bit shaky, but throws the ball at 60% completion rate, right? For what Arkansas State expects Jalen Raynor to do, he's not bad, and I think Arkansas State should be able to cover this football game. Again, they are not 14.5 points worse than Texas State. Yeah, Texas State's going to score, but Arkansas State should be able to score 2 at the same time, right? Texas State will get away, but Arkansas State will be able to cover the 14.5 points. 13.5, okay, that's where I get a little bit iffy trying to pick Arkansas State in this one, but 14.5, again, it's so key. They can lose by 2 touchdowns and still cover the spread. Give me Arkansas State. Next up, North Texas versus FAU. I think this line's a little bit disrespectful. North Texas might be the best team right now in the American, besides the military schools. They are levels better than FAU. They're so much better. I don't care. They have to go to Boca Raton in this game. FAU's only wins are FIU and Wagner. Their losses are 48-14 loss to UConn, 24-7 to Army. Sure, they're competitive against Michigan State, but like Aiden Childs just played like crap that game, and Aiden Childs is going to continue to play like absolute dog crap for Michigan State as well. Bet the over, right? Yeah, no. North Texas, bet the over on them. They're going to put up points. That's just what they do every single week, right? They're only lost to Texas Tech. And look where Texas Tech is now, right? Back-to-back victories over Cincinnati and Arizona. I am very surprised in the Red Raiders. And again, good for Texas Tech. They've been playing really good football this season. North Texas is just so much better than FAU. Chandler Morris is a quarterback. Again, he is going to air it out, and he is going to kill you in the air. That's just what he does. He's not afraid to air it out. 16 touchdowns, 6 picks, 1,600 passing yards. I like Chandler Morris a lot, and I like this North Texas offense. They're so much better than FAU. FAU is not going to be able to keep up. It's just, again, the only reason it's 6.5 is because they're on the road. This is the only reason. But, again, on paper, and you watch these two teams, no, North Texas, you can tell, is the much better football team compared to them in Florida Atlantic. Give me the mean green to win this football game, and they will cover the 6.5 as well on the road. Next up, UTSA versus Rice. I think these are kind of evenly matched teams, I think. UTSA has not been impressive this year, and I've spoken at length every single week about how bad I think Rice is. Rice isn't good. They're just not, right? E.J. Warner, I believe, is still starting for this football team, right? Okay, Rice, again, they're not a good team. Warner is not bad. You look at their running back position. Dean Connors played a good game last week. We'll see if they can carry that into this week. My thing is, again, I don't know who wins the football game. I'll be honest. They're both not very good, but they're both evenly matched. I think, in my opinion, UTSA might be slightly better, but it's not to the point where I think they're 6 points better, and on top of that, they have to go to Rice for this football game. Everything involved, Rice should be able to cover this. Will they win? I don't know. But UTSA, again, their only win in FBS play this season is Kennesaw State, where they beat them by 12 points. Other than that, a 39-point loss to Texas State. Lost to Texas, don't care. Lost to 10 points against East Carolina. Again, when you're fighting for wins and you're just trying to get over the hump and actually win a football game, covering by 6 points is a whole other thing. So again, I think this game is won and lost by about a field goal for either side. And on top of that, I don't think either of these teams can beat each other by 6 points. So that's why I will take Rice. That's not me thinking, oh, Rice is that good. It's just that neither of these teams are 6 points better than the other. So give me Rice to cover the 6 points. Next up, Appalachian State takes on Louisiana. The Ragin' Cajuns are playing great football this season. They are one of the better teams in the Sun Belt, right? 10-point victory last week in Southern Miss. You got to give all the credit in the world to them beating up on Wake Forest 41-38. Not beating up on them, but winning a very close game on the road in North Carolina against Wake Forest. The only loss this season is an 8-point loss to Tulane. I like Louisiana a lot, and Appalachian State's been severely underwhelming this season. They've only won one game in the FBS level this year where they beat East Carolina 21-19. They've got back-to-back losses to South Alabama and Marshall, 2 games where they've got a combined 100 points put on them. South Alabama with 48. Liberty didn't play that game, obviously, but Marshall, 52 points. Yeah, App State's going to score, but Louisiana's going to score too. Louisiana, for as bad as you want to call Wake Forest in the ACC, Louisiana still put up 41 points against them. And I just realized I've skipped over Nevada, Oregon State. I will get to that game very shortly. I accidentally skipped it. We'll get right back to it. But regardless of how you feel about Wake Forest, Louisiana still put up 41 points against an ACC school. Who's to say they're not going to do the same exact thing against Appalachian State? Appalachian State has not covered 10 in their 2 last losses to Marshall and South Alabama. Why would they cover on the road against Louisiana? Why would they? Give me the Ragin' Cajuns. They will cover and they will beat, and they will go out there and they will beat Appalachian State. This is the game I missed. Nevada versus Oregon State. Just because Nevada played San Jose State close does not make them all that good. I don't care. I don't care. Nevada had one good game. I'm still not sold on Nevada at all. Again, they play close games, but 4 points is not a lot for Oregon State to go out there and cover. It's just not, right? Oregon State played Colorado State very close last week. It shouldn't have been that close. On paper, Oregon State's the better football team. Anthony Hankerson ran for 113 yards. Good for him. It was his career high. And Oregon State, as long as they're able to effectively pound the rock this week, which, again, that's how Oregon State plays every week, they should be fine and they should cover against Nevada. Oregon State's only loss this year is the Oregon Ducks. Other than that, Oregon State's looked good this year. Again, 4.5. Hell, they went to double overtime against Colorado State, but even in that game, they did cover the 4.5 against Colorado State. If they do somewhat of the same thing against Nevada, they'll cover as well. They're the better football team between them and Nevada. They should be able to run the ball all day long against this Nevada team, a team that is led by Brendan Lewis at the quarterback position. Nothing on Nevada wows me. They just don't. They run the football decently well. They have a committee of guys that are going to run the football. But other than that, I'm just not that impressed with Nevada. Again, my thing with that Nevada-San Jose State game is Nevada was so close to winning that game against a really good football team, and you get to the very end of it, and you just lose by a hair. You get Nick Nash throwing a touchdown pass on you to win the football game. That's such a momentum thing. You go from the highs of, we almost went on the road and beat a very good team in San Jose State, to now you lost the game by 4 points, and now you got to regroup and you got to play a Pac-12 team. I think both teams are going to go back to what I thought they were. Nevada's going to go back to being one of these lowly Mountain West schools, and San Jose State's going to go back to being one of the top dogs in the Mountain West as well. So Mountain West, again, or in the Mountain West, San Jose State goes to Colorado State and they destroy Colorado State, and Nevada falls back down to earth. They lose by a touchdown or 2 to Oregon State, who should be able to run the ball all over them all night long. So give me Oregon State to cover the 4 points. Next up, Syracuse versus NC State, taking Syracuse to cover 4.5 on the road. NC State is just awful. They are horrible. And on top of that, Grayson McCall's out. Now, again, regardless of what you think about Grayson McCall or CJ Bailey, it was a late hit. It was not late hit, but it was a horrible hit on Grayson McCall last week in that Wake Forest game. Despite that, they are without their starting quarterback. Again, is it much of a downgrade from McCall to Bailey? It's not really, but Syracuse is just so much better. Guys, Kyle McCord's going to throw the ball 50 times every game, and Kyle McCord in this offense is progressively getting a lot better. 17 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. Sure, McCord's going to make his stupid mistakes. Again, Syracuse should have lost that football game. McCord makes a really bad pass in the 4th quarter on that last drive that should have been picked off by UNLV and should have won the football game for the Rebels. It's okay, but again, Kyle McCord has put up at least 340 yards in every single game he's played this year. Syracuse is able to score the ball almost every single time they go down the football field. Is NC State able to do that? No. And now NC State's without their quarterback, which again, I don't really think matters too much. But NC State's not going to be able to score it as many times as Syracuse is able to. Syracuse scores every single time they're out there. They had one horrible game against Stanford, and that's a game that still does not make sense to me. But NC State, again, a team that once had ACC and possibly playoff aspirations this season, is absolutely in the dumps Give me Syracuse to dominate the football game. Kyle McCord's going to throw the ball 60 times. It doesn't matter. NC State will not be able to keep up with what Syracuse is putting up this game. Next up, Marshall, Georgia Southern. Give me Marshall on the road. I think they're way better than Georgia Southern. I really think so. Right? Marshall's losses are VTech and Ohio State. Look what they've been able to do since then. They limited a really good Western Michigan offense to 20 points. And they beat App State 52-37. Braylon Braxton's not bad. He's really not. That's the quarterback switch I believe they made last week, right? Instead of Stone Earl, it went to Braylon Braxton, threw 5 touchdown passes in that game. I like what they could do in the running game as well with A.J. Turner. This is a guy that has 443 yards and averages 10 yards a carry so far this season, right? I like what Marshall's able to do. They're just so much better than Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern's wins are Nevada, SC State, and Georgia State. Like, okay, again, not bad losses, but Marshall's just all around better football team. I like what they're able to do on defense. Again, stop. I don't want to like underplay how big of a feat that is. Stopping Western Michigan to only 17 points is absolutely huge. That's an explosive offense. 20 points still. That's huge. It's absolutely huge. Braylon Braxton again at the quarterback position is going to be great for this Marshall team. I think again 5 touchdowns last week, no turnovers. That's the difference you're going to get between him and Stone Earl. You're going to get the lack of turnovers out of Braxton, which is fine. I think Marshall wins the football game. And they cover 2.5 on the road as well. Next up, our final game of the full slate here, and then we go into the featured games. Next, we've got Minnesota versus UCLA. Minnesota's coming off that huge one, obviously, at home last week against USC. Biggest win of the year for them. They're getting UCLA. And again, I picked UCLA last week. I didn't think Penn State was that many points better than them, and obviously they weren't. But now this is the game UCLA kind of gets smashed. Again, I want to shout out Indiana. Nobody's been able to do to UCLA what Indiana did to them. I'm just saying, Indiana's off this week. They're undefeated. They are going to go to the Big Ten championship game this season. Mark my words. They are going to. Indiana's going to go to the Big Ten championship. They might win it, and they're probably going to go to the playoffs. That's kind of where I see the Hoosiers at this point. But you look at UCLA, right? Like, they're just not that great. They've won one game this year. They beat Hawaii 16-13. Minnesota, 5.5 is not a lot for Minnesota. It's not. Like, they can win this game by a touchdown and cover, and that's what I think happens. Max Brosmer, didn't play a bad game last week. But he wasn't the reason they won that game. Obviously, it was their defense and it was the running attack led by Darius Taylor. And if they're able to get Darius Taylor going again, they should be fine in this football game. I think Minnesota's the way better football team between them and UCLA. Yeah, they have to go on the road. You got to go cross country to Pasadena. It's fine. Again, we saw Indiana go in there and dominate. We've seen Oregon go there and dominate. I would expect Minnesota to do the same exact thing. UCLA is bottom of the barrel of the Big Ten, and Minnesota, again, is not going to be a Big Ten title challenger, but they are going to be a team that's going to remain competitive in a lot of these games, and they're going to be an upset team for a lot of these teams to watch out for. So give me the Golden Gophers to go on the road. I think they cover the 5.5 points, and they go out there, and of course, they dominate and beat up on the UCLA Bruins. All right, let's go on now. The feature games, our first one being Utah taking on Arizona State. Utah last week, man, or 2 weeks ago, their game against Arizona, just very interesting because of the way we saw Arizona last week against Texas Tech compared to how we saw them against Utah. Again, a stark contrast in performances, but for the Utes, in that game against Arizona, could not get anything going offensively. And I'm picking Arizona State to win. This is a Friday night game. I say it every time we see Arizona State in a night game against a ranked team or a good team. Ranked teams go to die in Tempe. That's just what happens. Arizona State finds ways to beat really good teams, and I think the same thing happens here. I'm going to be honest with you. Arizona State's coming off a victory over Kansas. Their only loss this season is at Texas Tech, a Texas Tech team that has beat Arizona State, beat Cincinnati in a shootout as well. Arizona State's not that bad this year, and I think they do beat Utah. Another huge thing of this game is Cam Rising playing? I don't think he is. There's so much uncertainty around that injury. Is Rising playing? Is he not? I am kind of willing to say I don't think Rising's playing again this season. Again, I've seen a theory that he's just milking Utah out of their NIL money, which I don't think is that far off what's actually happening, if I'm going to be honest with you. Isaac Wilson just needs time. He's a freshman. He just needs time. Immediately, he's being thrusted into a top 15 team in the country. A lot of expectation, obviously. His brother, Zach, obviously in the NFL, big star at BYU. I don't know if he's ever going to get to that height, but again, in his freshman year, it's just rough for Isaac Wilson. I am assuming Isaac Wilson's going to play this game, and he's going on the road to Arizona State. Don't get me wrong, Utah's a good team, but their offense is so lackluster, and it doesn't help. Again, Wilson doesn't really take care of the football that well, something that Rising will do, and Isaac Wilson's deep ball isn't the greatest either. Again, the guy's, 19 years old, 18 years old. I'm worried for Utah in this game. You got a freshman quarterback going on the road to Tempe. That doesn't usually spell, a good result. I think Arizona State goes out there and wins. I think it's kind of crazy. They're getting 6.5 at home here, and I think they straight up win the game. It's a Friday night too. Yeah, give me the Sun Devils to win at home against the Utah Utes. Next up, we've got South Carolina taking on Alabama. I feel like just we have to talk about this one considering Alabama's last game last week at Vanderbilt. They lost by 5 points. It's rough. Their defense could not stop Diego Paiva and that Vandy offense, and now here we go. They get South Carolina. Now, don't get me wrong. Alabama's going to run right through South Carolina. I think, again, 21 is more than fair, but Alabama should cover this spread. South Carolina, if there was ever a team that Alabama needed to bounce back against, it is the South Carolina squad. I'm going to be honest. They're not that great. This is a team that really struggles at times to throw the football, depending on who the quarterback is. Will it be Robbie Ashford? Will it be Lenora Sellers? I think Ashford is slightly the better, thrower of the football, obviously. Sellers is a way better runner. I think Alabama should run right through South Carolina here. South Carolina, very one-dimensional offense. They're not going to be able to just, run it up on Bama and catch Bama off guard like Vandy was able to do and throw it out and air it out like Vanderbilt was able to do. No, South Carolina is more of a grind-em-out team where they're going to try to run the rock a lot. And again, they haven't been too successful in doing so this season. Their only win in the SEC is Kentucky, where they blew them out. It was a game that the defense played really well, which, no matter how well the Gamecocks defense plays this week, I don't think they're able to, to stop what Alabama should be able to do out there. Jalen Milroe should be fine again after, not a great week last week as a whole for Alabama. Milroe didn't play that horribly. They still put up 35 points in a loss. If they're able to, hit their big plays, they got to get, of course, they got to get Ryan Williams going, which he has been every single game for them. If Jam Miller can get going as well, I think Alabama should roll, no pun intended, roll tide. They should roll through South Carolina in this game. The game's in Tuscaloosa, and I'm not too concerned Bama goes out there and wins it. Again, it's a huge bounce back opportunity for Alabama. You lose to Vanderbilt, you go from number 1, but you're still 7 at this point of the year. Not a horrible spot to be in if you're the Crimson Tide. If you win out, obviously you're still in. If you win the SEC, you're still in the playoffs. But Alabama should take care of business, and they should beat South Carolina come Saturday morning. Next up, we have got a Big Ten matchup between Washington and Iowa. I don't really know if this game was too important to, feature it individually, but it is what it is. For Washington, they're coming off a 10-point victory against Michigan last week. Didn't expect it to happen, I'll be honest with you. And Washington is playing better. I think they look better in the second half against Rutgers. And Will Rogers has not been horrible this season. It's just, again, what has killed Washington, and it seemed like it was somewhat fixed last game against Michigan, was their red zone offense. And the red zone offense finally was starting to punch the ball in the red zone and get points. Their run game, Jonah Coleman is going to be their lead back, but their defense did look much improved last week, but it was against Michigan. Now, they're playing Iowa. Now, I think Iowa and Michigan are very comparable this season, if I'm going to be completely honest with you. They're kind of the same team. Really good run game, obviously, on both teams, right? Michigan, of course, their two-headed monster. And then, of course, Iowa, Caleb Johnson's one of the leading rushers in college football right now. Caleb Johnson has more rushing yards than Caden McNamara has passing yards. The thing is, though, Washington is coming off just playing Michigan. They just saw legitimately the same type of team, really good defense, team that's got good corners, and a team that can really run the ball. It's the same team Washington just played. Now they're just playing Iowa. I don't think Iowa is better than Michigan. I think they're close, but I still think Michigan's the better team. And again, what's the difference? Oh, Washington has to go to Ames and play Iowa. I think we're fine here. I think, Iowa City, excuse me. I butchered that. That's my fault. But I think UW should be able to go into Iowa and still win this football game. Their offense looked better. They were able to punch it in at points. If they play the same game if they play the same game they played last week against the Wolverines, they should dominate the Hawkeyes. And I think Washington on the road goes and picks up the victory. And of course, they cover the 2.5 as well. Next up, Texas and Oklahoma. Obviously, from the Cotton Bowl in Dallas, I'm going with Texas to win the football game, and I don't think it's particularly close. I've said it time in and time out. Texas is the best team in college football. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. Last week, I said Alabama was the best team in college football because of their win against Georgia, but no, it's definitely Texas, right? Texas has been the best team all year. Now they get Oklahoma, and Oklahoma is a team that has struggled. They've struggled on offense. Sure, they bounced back and beat Auburn, a game that they barely got by. Obviously, Jackson Arnold has been sat down. It is now Michael Hawkins Jr. is the starting quarterback of this football team. Again, it's just, I don't think that solves all their problems. Oklahoma, I still don't think is going to be able to move the ball against Texas here, and I think Texas is just going to put it on them, if I'm being completely honest with you. I think Texas wins this game by about 20 points. I think it's going to be very similar to the Texas-Mississippi State game. I'm not saying Oklahoma's worse than Mississippi State, but I think just stylistically, Texas matches up really well against Oklahoma. Oklahoma's not going to be able to move the ball downfield. Oklahoma's defense does, they do play some decent defense, right? They limited Tennessee, who has had troubles in their own right offensively, to 25 points. The most points they've given up all year is those 25 to Tennessee. I think this is where Texas breaks that, though I understand, again, huge rivalry game, right? The Red River rivalry or whatnot, Texas and Oklahoma. It's a huge game. Last year, of course, Oklahoma won it, but Texas is going to get their get back this week. They should be able to score at will against the Oklahoma squad, and usually the way, at least the last couple of years, this game has been going between Texas and Oklahoma, they've been shootouts. I think Texas holds up their end of the bargain. I don't think Oklahoma does that. I'll be completely honest with you. I think Texas will be able to score, and they're going to be able to score effectively. The Sooners, on the other hand, I just don't see it, if I'm being honest with you. I don't think this team's able to move downfield. On offense, they've done nothing impressive all year long. Their highest game passing all year long was Jackson Arnold in week 2, and they beat Houston by 4 points. He threw 174 passing yards in that game. They've never had a 100-yard rusher so far this season. They've not had a 100-yard receiver. This offense is just horrible. They're not going to be able to move the ball downfield. And on top of that, it's not like their defense is going to be that good where they're going to play stifling defense and shut down Texas. It's not happening. Give me the Longhorns all day long. They're going to cover the 14.5, and I don't think this game's all that competitive, if I'm being honest with you. It's Texas's biggest win of the year, and they're going to establish themselves fully as the number 1 team in the country. Next up, Penn State goes to Southern California to play USC. I'm taking Penn State. Okay, if USC did not lay an egg last week at Minnesota, I'd be probably taking USC right now. I think Penn State's going to be able to shut down whatever USC has got going on offense with Miller Moss and company. I think so. I think Penn State's going to play good enough defense. This game's close. This game is very close. I think Penn State wins it by a touchdown. I could very easily, though, see USC making this a 3-point game, being a razor-thin victory for the Nittany Lions, okay? I would not bet on this football game because there's a very good chance USC, A, wins the game, or B, covers. I would not bet anything on this football game. Just watch this game and enjoy it because it's going to be good. Penn State hasn't wowed me this season yet, though, right? We picked UCLA to cover last week, obviously, right? I mean, that felt like a pretty good pick for us. Illinois covered 2 weeks ago against Penn State. The only team Penn State's covered against all year, I guess West Virginia, and then Kent State. Penn State's offense, sure, they've got talent, but they don't wow you. They don't, right? Drew Aller has put up decent numbers, but again, this team just hasn't been all that impressive. Singleton's been all right. I don't know. They just play good defense, but their offense does lack sometimes. This game's all dependent on where their defense sets up their offense, though. Again, I think Miller Moss is really good. I really like that USC offense, but again, last week, Miller Moss didn't have a good game. They ran the ball a lot. Marks at 134 yards rushing, but they couldn't throw the ball against Minnesota. Now what's going to happen? We're going to play Penn State. I understand the Big Ten and really the ACC now too, again with Stanford and Cal, is just so weird because you have these teams, again, you have a team from Pennsylvania playing a team in Southern California, and that's a league game now. It's insane. Travel's a thing. Penn State, again, it's a big difference. This game's now at USC and it's not, of course, over in Pennsylvania. I think Penn State wins. I know they're the better football team. It's just a matter of them going on the road. Is that going to trouble them that much to beat SC? I think they should be able to win the game. I think USC, if I'm going to be honest with you, I think now they're going to start to kind of unravel the rest of the season. I don't think they're a top 25 team anymore. I think they'll finish at like 8-4, 7-5. 7-5, I think is more, I think they lose to Notre Dame. I think they probably lose at UW. Those are their 5 losses. I think Rutgers might give them some trouble as well, even though that game's going to be at 11 o'clock at night for Rutgers, so probably not. But still, I think it's kind of where USC starts to slowly unravel. Give me Penn State to win the football game. I think it's going to be close, though. This is USC's last chance to get back in it in terms of the playoffs and whatnot. They have to win this football game. Penn State needs to have it as well. I think they will get it. Give me Penn State. Next up, Cal and Pittsburgh. Again, I will say this every single week. I am rolling with the Pittsburgh Panthers. I continue to tell you guys about the Pittsburgh Panthers every single week. I pick Pitt every single week to cover and to win, and they keep on doing the damn thing. On the road last week at North Carolina, 2.5-point favorites. They cover the points. They win it by 10. It's what you want out of this Pittsburgh team. Guys, Eli Holstein is putting together a low-key Heisman campaign. Eli Holstein is a top 10 quarterback in college football that nobody talks about at this point in the year. 65% completion rate, 15 touchdowns. The guy is unbelievable so far. 1,600 passing yards. Desmond Reed has stepped up perfectly in Rodney Hammond's role at the starting running back of this position. Mumpfield's been playing tremendously as well. I like this Pitt team a lot. And the fact that Pittsburgh is only getting 2.5 against California is some of the most ridiculous crap I've ever seen. Guys, you want to talk about locks this week? Pittsburgh is not going to have a competitive game with California. This is a blowout if I've ever seen it. Pittsburgh is going to dominate. Now, you're saying, oh, well, Cal played Miami tough. I don't give a damn. Miami had to go all the way from South Florida to Berkeley, again, in the Coke versus Woke game or the convicts versus communists game over in Berkeley, right? Sure, Berkeley had the choke of the century, right? They're up by 18 points. They end up losing it by 1 at the last second. Shout out Cam Ward. But Cal has lost back-to-back games, Florida State and Miami. And what happened when California had to go cross-country to play Florida State? They looked lackluster. Their offense could not get going. Now, if their kicker wasn't horrible, they would have won that football game. But still, what's going to happen now when they're going to play Pittsburgh? They're going to have to go all the way across the country, and Pittsburgh should dominate this football game. Cal's not going to be able to keep up. Again, I have no doubt in my mind Pittsburgh's going to be able to score. Cal's not going to be able to score the ball this game. Pittsburgh doesn't play the best defense. Like, they get into a lot of high-scoring games that they just edge out at the end. But I don't think California's going to be able to score. Fernando Mendoza's not bad, but and Ott really hasn't had the greatest of years so far. I know he's been better, but give me Pittsburgh all day long. They are a ranked team, guys. They are undefeated, and they are marching their damn way to the postseason this year. I'm just saying, Pittsburgh is going to be a playoff team. Give me the Panthers to win it and cover at home. Next up, Brigham Young takes on Arizona. We are taking the Wildcats to go on the road to beat Brigham Young because BYU is not as good as everyone thinks they are. They're just not. I like BYU. Personally, I've always liked BYU. Again, some of my favorite times watching college football was watching 2020 Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson, that's why I'm a huge fan of Zach Wilson, and I still will be a huge fan of Zach Wilson. He should be starting over Bo Nix, but it's besides the point. I really like BYU. I like what they got going on this season. They're just not better than Arizona. BYU, they are ranked 14th. But guys, look at the teams they've played so far. They beat K-State. That's their one victory, but I will get to K-State later in this video. I don't think K-State's all that great out there. The Big 12 as a whole, guys, isn't very good, but it's fine. BYU's wins this year are 3 points over SMU. They beat the worst team in the Mountain West. They beat Wyoming. They beat K-State, and I'll give them credit. They went to Baylor and won. That's their biggest win of the season so far. It was a dogfight that they won in Waco. But now you get a very talented team in Arizona, a team that's going to play stifling defense, and a team that just needs to get it going offensively. Again, I refuse to believe that Fafita and McMillan are going to have back-to-back horrible weeks on offense. Guys, their offense just couldn't get going against Texas Tech. They kind of were on against Utah, and the K-State game, they were horrible. This offense is going to explode eventually. Now, are they going to win the Big 12? No, I don't think they are. But eventually, this Arizona offense is going to explode, and they're going to go on their little run. Now, again, they play Colorado next week, and I don't know if they can beat Colorado. I don't think so. I think it's going to be a crazy shootout. Colorado probably wins, but it's fine. Again, that's another team. I always pick Colorado for a reason. Hey, look at them now. But I think Arizona shows up against BYU. Arizona plays really good defense. They should be able to shut down BYU, and I don't know how well BYU plays against this Arizona offense. This game is so dependent on how Arizona plays on offense. Again, they might have the best receiver, the number one player in all college football in terms of draftability and in the draft this season in McMillan. McMillan's probably going to be the first position player off the board, I think, maybe. We'll see. Fafita's just got to take care of the football. He may make some stupid mistakes, I'm going to be honest. I just think Arizona's better than BYU. I don't care they're going on the road for this game. I think, again, this is your perfect opportunity to buy low in Arizona when BYU is at its highest as well. This is the perfect value you're ever going to get out of Arizona in this football game. Plus 165, they're 5.5-point dogs. I don't know. I think this is the perfect time to cash in on the BYU hype. I think it is. Trust me, I wouldn't mind seeing BYU win the football game. If BYU wins the Big 12, I think that's great. I think it is. Shout out Provo. But nah, give me Arizona. Give me the Wildcats to go out there and win this football game. They're going to cover the 5.5, and they're going to straight up win as well. All right, next up, we go to the SEC. Tennessee takes on Florida. I'm taking Tennessee to win the football game. I'm taking them to, though, not cover 15.5 because that's just too much for this Tennessee offense that has been very underwhelming. Now, again, I think they win the football game, but Nico hasn't had a good game since Kent State. He hasn't. Oklahoma is just okay. Now, again, the whole thing, they weren't opening up their playbook. Well, what happened last week when they opened up their playbook at Arkansas? They didn't really perform. So now you get them in Florida. Now, Florida surprised me. I'm not going to lie. I didn't think they were going to be Central Florida. It is what it is. We had a bad week last week. I'm not afraid to say it. It is what it is. But I think Tennessee's the better football team. I think they win, but I don't know if they're able to get away from Florida by that much. Now, the game is at Neyland Stadium. It's in Knoxville. Again, Tennessee should be expected to win the football game. They are 15.5-point favorites, though. I don't think they cover that. I think, again, Florida's able to stay somewhat competitive. My thing, again, is I don't think Tennessee's able to score that many points. I think we can expect Florida to score at least 17 points, I think, is the minimum for Florida this football game. That's kind of my guess. Actually, that's the minimum, but that's what I kind of think they will score. Okay, that means Tennessee's going to have to score 33 to win this football game, or to cover 32-33. That's tough. That's tough for this Tennessee offense when's the last time they scored 33 points? Against a good team? NC State? That's rough. I think you just got to look at this, math-wise. Tennessee's offense hasn't shown up. And I think they win the football game, but I just don't know if they're able to put up that many points against Florida. Because I think Florida's going to score 17. I think they are. Now, I know that'd be the most points a team has scored against Tennessee this season. But I think Florida, they have their playmakers. They will find a way to get some points on the board. It's just a matter of can Tennessee, get 32, 33 on the board. I don't think they will. I'm going to take Florida to cover, but we're going, of course, with the Volunteers to win the football game. It's a game that they just need to win. It doesn't matter how impressively they win it. They just need to go out there and get a win after their loss last week at Arkansas. Next up, the game of the week. By far the game of the week. Oregon versus Ohio State in Eugene. It's about a $250 get-in price for that football game. Again, it's the game of the year so far. I'm going with the Oregon Ducks to beat Ohio State. I think home field advantage it's a thing, guys. Again, the new era of the Big Ten, it is so crucial who is the home football team. I think Ohio State is the slightly better team. I'm going to outright say it. If this game was in a neutral site, I think Ohio State wins it. But at Oregon, give me the Ducks. Now, I've been saying for a while, too, I think the Big Ten championship game is going to be Ohio State versus Indiana, and it's going to be in Indianapolis. Right here, right now, I am telling you it is going to be Oregon versus Indiana now instead, because now I'm taking Oregon to beat Ohio State, and we will see what's going to happen from there on out. I think some tiebreakers will get tricky, but for now, I'm picking Oregon to beat Ohio State. Here's why. I think their offense gets going, and Ohio State has not played a caliber team yet of Oregon this season. And sure, okay, Oregon hasn't played a great team either. Well, they've played Boise. They played Michigan State. They both played Michigan State. Despite that, I've seen Oregon go out there, test it, and win close games. Ohio State has not been in a close game all season long. That's a huge thing when you're going into a dogfight. On the road, hostile environment in Eugene, Oregon. Again, they have not been in a close game so far this season. That's a big deal because Oregon has. Regardless of, they haven't looked good in X, Y, and Z games, sure, but Oregon has been in these dogfights and they've come out of them victorious. Ohio State hasn't been in that yet. They haven't been in a close game. They haven't really been in a game where they have been at all in danger. Don't get me wrong, Will Howard's played exceptionally well this season. Judkins has been playing really exceptionally well as well. Travion Henderson, probably the best 1-2 punch in all college football. Don't get me wrong. Jeremiah Smith's an excellent receiver too. But they have not been in a close game yet. Oregon's going to smack them in the mouth this week. Dylan Gabriel has been playing really well. Prior to the 2 interceptions he threw last week against Michigan State, he had only thrown 1 the entire season. Dylan Gabriel should be able to turn it up this week. I like what Jordan James does in the running game. I like the receiving corps too. You got Tez Johnson, Trayshawn Holden, and then you got Terrence Ferguson, the tight end position. I think Oregon's going to be able to win a shootout here. I think it's going to be a very high-scoring game. Again, this is the game of the week. I cannot wait to watch this football game, but I'm taking the Oregon Ducks, and I feel pretty good about Oregon winning this game at home. Again, home field advantage matters, not just because of the crowd, but Ohio State now has to go from Columbus all the way to Eugene, Oregon. That is a huge time difference. It's 3 hours, but still, huge time difference, long flight. Again, this matters this isn't a non-conference game. This is conference football. And again, Ohio State has to go from Columbus, Ohio to Eugene, Oregon in a conference game. Playing on the Pacific time zone, give me the Oregon Ducks. Again, I truly believe in home field advantage, and I think Oregon has a huge one this week. Give me the Ducks to win, and obviously they will cover the 4 as well. Next up, Ole Miss versus LSU. I'm taking Ole Miss to bounce back, guys. I feel like this is a pretty easy pick. The line might be shifted to 3 now, as I'm seeing right now, but if you can get 2.5, take it all day here. Ole Miss is going to win this football game. They are. They look much better in that game against South Carolina. Again, they just got shocked against Kentucky. I still think Ole Miss is a playoff team, if I'm being honest with you. I think if Ole Miss can get things going, if they can beat LSU this week, beat Oklahoma, beat Arkansas, I think they can be in a really good position in their third to last game of the season and beat Georgia at home. That's my prediction with Ole Miss. If they are able to beat LSU, beat Oklahoma, beat Arkansas, I think they will beat Georgia as well. I think they will establish themselves as one of the top teams in the SEC and punch their ticket to the postseason. Okay, but again, Ole Miss needs to bounce back. I know they did last week, but now this is a true game that they've got to win on the road at Baton Rouge. LSU doesn't impress me. They don't. They don't do anything exceptionally well for me. Okay? They beat South Alabama last week like expected. It is what it is. Whatever, right? Newsom's been playing well. Their quarterback's been playing well. But again, their defense gives up points. Their offense will stall out at points. They've been in close games. The South Carolina game was close. Should have gone to overtime if their kicker made it, right? UCLA, they couldn't get by UCLA. They couldn't cover against UCLA. And again, LSU's only lost his week 1 to USC, but that loss actually is not aging all that well at this point. I think Ole Miss wins the football game. They've got the better offense. LSU gives up points, and Ole Miss is going to score. They're not going to, again, they had their performance against Kentucky, which was horrible. It's not going to repeat itself. Jackson Dart, again, is still fully in the Heisman race. He's not going to win it because it's a two-dog race at this point. It's Ashton Genty and Travis Hunter. It's pretty obvious. But still, Dart is in it. Dart's in the top 5, I would say. He puts up crazy yards. Again, this is Ole Miss's chance to prove themselves to everyone. It is. It is a chance for Lane Kiffin's team to go out there and prove themselves that we are truly still a top team in the country. I think they do it. I think they do. I think Trey Harris has a huge day throwing the football or catching the football against LSU. I just think they're going to put up a lot of points against Louisiana State, and I don't think Louisiana State's able to match that. Okay, yeah, LSU does score. They do a lot. I think it's going to be a close game through 3 quarters. I think it is. I think this game might be tied after the end of the 3rd quarter. I think Ole Miss just slightly pulls away. I think Ole Miss wins by 7 or 10. Okay, I think the 4th quarter they will pull away from Louisiana State. I think it's a huge game, but LSU has not played anybody like Ole Miss yet. In all fairness, Ole Miss hasn't played anyone but like LSU either. They played a good Kentucky defense, but other than that, they really haven't played anybody. I think Ole Miss is way more prepared to win this football game, and they're way more equipped to win this football game against Louisiana State. So give me the Ole Miss Rebels to win this football game on the road in Baton Rouge. To our next one, West Virginia versus Iowa State. Guys, Iowa State -3 is highway robbery at this point. What are we doing? Iowa State's going to dominate this West Virginia team. I get it. West Virginia's played a lot better since their loss to Penn State. Great, right? They lost to Pittsburgh, which, hey, lost the backyard brawl. Again, I keep trying to tell you guys about Pittsburgh and how good that football team is. West Virginia beat Kansas, great. They beat Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State is a shell of what we thought they were going to be coming into the season. Ollie Gordon is again a shell of his former self. Alan Bowman is all right, but still. I don't really like West Virginia still. They play good defense. Sure, they run the ball a lot with C.J. Donaldson. Garrett Green, obviously the starting quarterback, who is more just a game manager. That's all he is. I think personally, he has his good games. Don't get me wrong. He played well against Kansas, but I don't know. I'm not a big Green guy. Iowa State's by far the better football team. Iowa State right now is the best team in the Big 12. I think they are. I think we're going to see Iowa State and Colorado probably match up in the Big 12 championship game just because those two teams don't have to face each other in the regular season. I like what Iowa State does. They play great defense. They run the ball. They're starting to run the ball better and better, but again, their defense is what is really keeping them together. Jalen Jackson has gotten going recently. Rocco Becht, again, he does what they need him to do. That's a more positive way of saying he's a game manager, but I like what Iowa State does a lot on offense. I think they've been building up better and better on offense. Their defense plays really well as well. I don't know how West Virginia is able to score against Iowa State, or at least effectively, and I think the Cyclones win this game, and I don't think it's too hot of a take. Again, I think they win this game by 7-10 points. That's why, again, -3 is an atrocity. Iowa State is the way better football team, and sure, West Virginia's won back-to-back games against Kansas and Oklahoma State. I don't give a damn. Iowa State's number 11 in the country. They go to Morgantown, and they dominate this football game. Give me the Cyclones to go on the road and win this one. Next up, we have got Vandy taking on Kentucky. Just had to talk about it because of what happened last week, right? I mean, this game's at Kroger Field in Lexington. I'm going with Kentucky to win the football game, but I'm taking Vandy to cover. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on this game, but these are two teams that have played, again, the top teams in the SEC very competitively. Kentucky almost beat Georgia. They lost by 1 point. They, beat Ole Miss. And for Vandy, of course, coming off an Alabama victory. Again, Vandy will keep this game close. This is the 14.5 is too many points for me personally, but I think Kentucky goes out and wins the football game. They've had a whole 2 weeks to prepare for Vanderbilt. I think they're going to be more than fine in this football game. Vandy's offense is going to get shut down in this game. Kentucky does play pretty good defense. You saw that, how they dealt with Jackson Dart and company, right? You saw how they dealt with, Carson Beck in Georgia. Diego Paiva, again, is going to have a rough day, I think, against Kentucky. Vandergriff, again, does nothing exceptionally well. I'm going to be honest with you. But again, Vandergriff is nothing more than a game manager for Kentucky. Their own offense does have their own problems. That's why, again, 14.5 is way too many points because Kentucky just can't get away from teams like that. Again, Kentucky can win this game by 2 touchdowns and not cover. 2 touchdowns is a lot of points in the SEC. It is. It's a lot of points against another team in the SEC who just beat Alabama. They're not getting away by that many points. They will win the football game, but this is a 3 to 7 point game that Kentucky just wins barely. They just win it because they're at home, because, their defense should be able to stop Vanderbilt, and they've been, they're coming off a bye week as well. I like what Kentucky is able to do this week. Again, Vandy's going to be flying high after their victory against Alabama like they should. But I don't really like what they've got going on this week at Kentucky. I just think it's a tough game for them. Give me Kentucky to win. Again, 14.5 is too many points. 14 is too many points, So even if Kentucky wins by 2 touchdowns, we push. If you can get an alt line of 14.5 for Vandy, I like it even more. Give me Kentucky to win, though, but Vandy to cover. On to Colorado and K-State. Okay. I'm taking Colorado to win the football game, all right? I like Colorado a lot. I've always liked Colorado. I've been high on this team the entire season. I think they're the better team. Kansas State has been somewhat underwhelming this year. I understand, again, they're still ranked because they beat Arizona, but they got beat up at Brigham Young. If Colorado can just get out to a really good start, this is going to be hell for Kansas State. Colorado's defense is continuing to get better on a week-to-week basis. They are continuing to evolve. You know the offense is going to show up. Again, I say it every week. Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter are going to be the best two players in the field in every game they play. I'm going to be honest with you. That's how good those two guys are. They are that good. It's just a matter of the defense. Shedeur Sanders is by far the best quarterback in college football. Sure, is he not in the Heisman race? I mean, I would say he kind of is. Is he going to win the Heisman? No. Again, it's going to be Ashton Genty. If he falls off a cliff, it's going to be Travis Hunter. If not, I don't know. I think, you can make the case for Jackson Dart. I think you make the case for, obviously, Cameron Ward. I think Cameron Ward would be number 3 right now. Jackson Dart, I think if Ole Miss plays how I expect them to play, he's going to be in the thick of things as well. I want to give a shout out to Curtis Rourke as well. He's been playing phenomenal football for Indiana. He's just not going to win the Heisman because he's from Indiana, and he went to Ohio last year. But Colorado's the better football team. They will score. This game is going to be, I don't think it's going to be a blowout like K-State BYU is. Again, BYU just made the right plays at the right time. K-State turned the ball over too many times. They're not going to make that many mistakes like they did over in Provo. However, Colorado is going to score points. I don't think Kansas State's able to keep up. I get it. Kansas State beat Oklahoma State last week. Good for them. Great. Or 2 weeks ago. That's awesome. I don't think what Avery Johnson in this offense has will be able to keep up with Colorado. DJ Giddens runs the ball really well, and that's what's going to hurt Colorado. But when Kansas State's throwing the football here, I don't think Avery Johnson's able to see that much success. Colorado's the better football team. We picked them to win in their last game as 14-point dogs on the road. Now they get K-State at home. It's time to rank the Buffs. They're going to win this football game, and it's time to rank them. And they're going to go on the road and beat Arizona. Then they're going to beat a very tough Cincinnati team at home. Now, I don't know if they can beat Texas Tech at Texas Tech. I'm going to be completely honest with you. That's going to be a rough game. Utah at home, they'll win that game. They'll beat Kansas on the road, and they will beat Oklahoma State. At worst, I think Colorado goes 10-2 this season. They have to, though, beat Texas Tech to make the playoffs. We'll see. I don't know. Texas Tech's really good. But for now, Colorado's going to beat Kansas State. They've got the better team. They've got the better offense. If their defense just somewhat steps up, they should be fine. K-State's defense doesn't impress me that much, if I'm being honest with you. They're not bad, but they're not great at the same time. And Colorado will be able to score against any offense, especially at home, and a team that has fully gotten going. This is a way different Colorado team than what we saw them play at Nebraska. Way different. So give me Colorado to win the football game. They should win it, and they are dogs. So, hey, keep giving me plus money with the Buffs. I'm going to keep taking it. Give me Buffalo. I took Buffalo earlier in the video. Give me Colorado to win the football game as we go into our final one of the night. Boise State, Hawaii. This is just an excuse for me to talk about Ashton Genty. It just is. Guys, the pick isn't too controversial. Boise State wins the football game, and Boise covers by 21 points. Now, teams always play, kind of bad at Hawaii, I'll be honest with you. But Boise is just going to be running the ball down Hawaii's throat. So I don't think that's going to affect them too much. Hawaii's just not that good this year. They lost Sam Houston, who's not bad. In all fairness, Sam Houston's probably one of the better teams they played this season. But them losing to San Diego State is just kind of, I said that was bad on San Diego State's part that they couldn't blow out Hawaii. But at the same time, Hawaii lost to San Diego State, who is atrocious this season. Hawaii's not that good. Okay, now I get to talk about Ashton Genty. This guy is one of the best running backs I've ever seen. I've said it on the channel before, at least college football. I've said this on the channel before. Again, Darrell Henderson Jr. is probably, it's a very odd one that you can say. But if I get asked the question, who's my favorite player I've ever watched in college football, and I've watched some great college football players. Again, I watched RG3 at Baylor. Loved watching RG3 at Baylor. I loved watching Jameis Winston at Florida State. Zach Wilson at BYU it was so fun to watch, especially against the guys he played. I watched Christian McCaffrey play live at Stanford. I saw Andrew Luck play and throw the ball to Ty Montgomery. I've seen some great players in my day. I saw Michael Pittman Jr. at USC. No, the best college football player I've ever watched is Darrell Henderson Jr. And now I never watched Darrell Henderson Jr. play at Memphis live, but I've watched it, obviously. I watched it on TV live. That is the best college football player I've ever seen. I might be a little bit biased just because I really liked watching Memphis that year, and I was really into the American Conference that year. Ashton Genty might be even better than Darrell Henderson Jr. He probably is. Okay, let's be honest. He's better than Darrell Henderson Jr. It's just that's my own personal thing. I loved watching Darrell Henderson Jr. Ashton Genty is slowly and actually quickly, climbing in my ranks of favorite college football player to ever watch. Shedeur Sanders, don't get me wrong, I love watching Shedeur Sanders as well, but I would look forward to watching Memphis playing these bad teams. I look forward to watching Boise State play Hawaii. Usually you just watch the Hawaii 8 o'clock game or 11 o'clock game if you're on the East Coast because there's nothing else to watch. No, you're watching this game because of Ashton Jeanty. Ashton Jeanty, again, has 1,031 rushing yards in 5 games, and he's got 16 touchdowns. And in 3 of those games, he's been pulled at halftime. Insane. The way he's able to truck guys, the speed that he has, Ashton Jeanty is legit. And Maddox Madsen's been playing some really good football too. Shout out to him. Like, seriously, Madsen's been really good at quarterback for this team. There's a reason he beat out Malachi Nelson in the offseason. It's because he's better than Malachi Nelson. But Ashton Jeanty's the best player in college football right now. He is. He's going to be the Heisman. He's going to have 2,400 rushing yards, give or take, I think. And he should win the Heisman. And I don't know if he breaks Barry Sanders' record. We will see. He will get the additional Mountain West championship game, obviously. We'll see if he breaks Barry's record. But this guy right now is the best running back I've ever seen in college football. Okay. Give me Boise State to win the football game. They're going to absolutely dismantle Hawaii. But again, that's just my excuse to talk about Ashton Jeanty for an extended period of time because he's that good. Give me Boise to cover the 21. They're going to go on the road to Hawaii and win the football game. So, folks, thank you all for watching our Week 7 college football predictions here on the channel. Make sure that subscribe button down below for more college football picks. Again, we'll be back next week for week number 8. Make sure that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to join us for our NFL predictions coming out of the channel tomorrow. Again, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. It helps the channel out a lot if you do hit that subscribe button. And make sure to leave a like and comment if you do disagree with any of the picks. Folks, thank you all for watching, and Mampa forever.